And a good Friday afternoon to you. Hope you're enjoying some mild weather, some dry weather. Not always dry, which is one of the reasons we do these tidal flooding talks. I'm meteorologist Dan Skeldon. It is my first visit, even though I've lived in New Jersey for 15 years, to our state capital. My first time in Trenton, and I'm honored to be joined with Christine O'Brien, President of the Insurance Council of New Jersey. Christine, thanks for having us.
Sure, thanks for coming.
Thank you for welcoming me to
Welcome
the state capital.
to the state capital.
Yeah, it'd be beautiful. Good to be here on a nice day, and we are going to chat about, well, some not so nice weather and what we can do when not so nice weather strikes. Hurricane season's coming up June 1st, and we're going to talk about how flooding is a year-round threat in New Jersey. But first, Christine, tell us a little bit about your organization, the Insurance Council of New Jersey.
Thanks, Dan. So welcome to the Insurance Council of New Jersey, the ICNJ for short. We are a not-for-profit trade association for property casualty insurance companies doing business here in New Jersey. So property casualty insurance are the lines of auto insurance, home insurance, commercial insurance, and workers' compensation. So we represent member companies, over 60% of the market we write here in New Jersey. We also work with companies that are non-members, though I would encourage the non-members to join. And we basically represent and advocate on behalf of insurers and our policyholders. So at the state legislature and at the New Jersey Department of Banking and Insurance, the Department of Labor, Motor Vehicles Commission, we work with policymakers to make sure that policyholders are protected. There are things in place that allow the market to thrive so that we can still have a lot of choice, affordability, and availability of insurance for New Jerseyans, because we're a very densely populated state. We have all different types of occurrences at every level. So it's important that your insurance companies have a voice before policymakers to protect the coverage and provide coverage to offer to everybody. So that's what we do here.
And we have, unfortunately, and especially the past decade, we've had plenty of, work for insurance companies, meaning plenty of storms and plenty of claims. Perhaps one of the biggest ones recently, Superstorm Sandy, back in October of 2012. How has your work, changed since then? And it's kind of that storm which has brought us together today.
Right, yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. Superstorm Sandy, as everybody knows, was a game changer in New Jersey. I think Superstorm Sandy was a wake-up call for people who have owned their homes forever and didn't have a mortgage as a result, and so maybe not have had flood insurance, yet still lived near the coast. It was a wake-up call for those people who might be near different river floodplains and maybe have experienced different surges in the past, but not to the extent that they saw in Sandy. So what's interesting about how we come to this today is the ICNJ was approached by members of the Coastal Coalition out of Atlantic County and Cape May County. And the idea was, how do you help to mitigate the risk? And forward thinking, those towns and counties thought that perhaps the development of a tool for homeowners to know where they can park their car in the event of a flood or a tidal surge would be helpful. And they looked to us for funding. It was a local insurance agent, Tom Heist. I'll give you a shout out.
He's fantastic at what he does. Yes.
Recommended to the folks at the Coastal Coalition that they talk to the ICNJ. And it was sort of a no-brainer for the insurance companies to provide seed money to the coalition to help develop, hopefully, an app that will be useful to all residents within those counties. And it has the potential, I think, to be nationwide. And I think that you would see it as a common tool in the future. But that's how we started to partner. And so Sandy allowed the whole state, whether it was state government all the way down to local governments, to reassess what we do here to mitigate water damage, basically, from flood. And it has also raised awareness among the public about what is flood insurance, what is FEMA, and really after Superstorm Sandy, if you don't know what FEMA the NFIP, National Flood Insurance Program, and a flood insurance policy is. And if you don't know that your homeowners does not offer flood coverage, you've been living under a rock, because that was one of the biggest issues that came to light as a result of Sandy, that your homeowners does not cover flood. And that is a very, very hard reality for a lot of people to learn under very dire circumstances. And so that's where we've come. And what's good is the market is evolving. FEMA and NFIP have recognized that the private insurance market should be able to assess and write some of that risk. And there's been a slow trend towards that. I mean, we could get into the details about that. But right now, when somebody has a flood insurance policy, they will see the name of an insurance company across the top. That does not mean that that insurance company is actually underwriting the risk.
Right.
They are part of what they call the Write Your Own program. So the federal government, through FEMA, contracts with all these home insurance companies throughout the country. And they basically administer the plan. They collect the premium, they provide you the information about the coverage, but they don't pay out the claims. FEMA and NFIP does. And that's what we talk about at the federal level. At what point does that...
What happened?
Phone call, we're good.
Okay.
That's one of the things that Sandy brought to the fore, that people need to be much more aware of how they obtain flood insurance, where it's available, and how to buy it.
Now, Sandy, I mean, for instance, how many claims or how many cars were lost in New Jersey from Hurricane Sandy?
So Hurricane Sandy saw a total of, I'm going to say, over 400,000 some odd claims, 500, 600,000 claims. There was just over 50,000 valid claims for personal auto. So everybody saw the tragic pictures of businesses being wiped out, boardwalks floating away, houses destroyed or damaged. Cars got swept away in those tides, and cars also suffered severe water damage. So we processed in New Jersey roughly over 50,000 auto insurance claims,
which is
just as a result.
An incredible number,
Huge.
Considering, the barrier islands were under mandatory evacuation, so there shouldn't theoretically have been cars there. If car is something, you can't really move your house, but you can move your car, which is why I know the Coastal Coalition is so grateful that you guys have, helped finance this app that's in development, which, it uses technology to, teach you where you can and cannot park based on the projected forecast of tidal flooding.
Right. If you could just move your car from your driveway to the local park, or pick up your kids from the school and park, at the Overlook or whatever, you will save yourself an insurance claim.
Right. And residents sometimes know where those safe spots to park are, but tourism is huge in New Jersey, and let's say you're vacationing down the shore in the summer. You have no idea. And I moved to Ocean City in 2002. And I had no idea that the highest point on that island is actually near the beach. You kind of think it'd be away from the ocean.
Yeah, interesting.
But so many islands, the highest point is near the beach. Yeah. So I think this app is a great idea. I think we have the same goal as you, and that is to educate, to decrease risk of property loss, of property damage, and worst case of life loss as well.
And also the mindset that flooding doesn't just come with an event. So Ocean City, high tide, full moon, it doesn't even have to rain. And when the bay comes up, and next thing you know, you're parked in water just because it's seeping up out of the sewer. So on the barrier islands, it's important for people to recognize, and most people do, the bay can meet the ocean.
That's right.
And there goes the island. So from an insurance point of view, it's important for homeowners to read their policies, know what is covered, understand your deductibles. You can purchase wind coverage, hurricane coverage. You have separate deductibles for those, but it still won't cover flood. And so you need to understand what that means. You can talk to an agent, call any of the carriers. There's a ton of information online, even on the NFIP, FEMA. And also the New Jersey Department of Banking and Insurance has very useful links on their website, from the home buyer's guide to just general links about flood and how to seek out insurance.
Now, FEMA's also proposed to a new rule coming up in 2020, which is going to help the consumer as well. I want to explain a little bit about what that is and what is the change, how we used to do it and how we may do it going forward.
So the program is called Risk Rating 2.0, and in 2020 it will actually, it's an extension of the federal Bigger Waters Act, flood insurance reform from 2012. And it basically is requiring lenders to accept private flood insurance policies as a criteria for writing mortgage, for example, versus now they are only allowed to accept NFIP written policies. So there are guidelines set. If a policy meets that standard, sold by the private markets, you go to your regular homeowners company. If they sell it, you can buy it from them, and your mortgage lender to refinance or purchase new has to accept that policy. So that's a big game changer for a consumer to actually shop. And chances are, the more opportunity you have to shop, the more you're going to find something in your price point.
Okay, that's great news too. Do you think that do you think that the recent array of storms that we've had, like we had a really bad nor'easter, Jonas in 2016 along the shore, lots of flooding, lots of damage. We had Irene, we had Sandy. Do you think that our recent bad luck weather-wise has kind of awakened people to the understanding flood insurance, understanding what insurance does and doesn't cover? Has it kind of educated the public a little bit more as to what I need to be safe and what I need to be covered?
I would like to say yes, and I would like to say yes in terms of Jersey is a little more savvy than most, but some of the stark numbers that come out of the floods, like in Texas, you had close to 60% of the homeowners that were wiped out in the Houston area didn't have flood insurance, and yet that city, if they knew anything of the history of the city, is all built on floodplains.
Right.
But not all of it was necessarily in the flood map. So I think there should be a lot more awareness of just where you're situated. And so that's what's interesting about this Risk Rating 2.0. This program allows you to assess your personal risk, not just where your house is located. And that will allow people to shop their premiums differently. More people should consider buying flood insurance. And here's why. One of the things we saw, and it devastated a lot of the smaller kind of bungalow shore communities here and in New York, those houses have been in families for generations. You own it outright. So there's no bank requiring you to have flood insurance. And you know how the tide ebbs and flows, and you've got dunes, etc. But when an event occurs like that, you basically are left with nothing because your homeowners doesn't cover flood. And that's a daunting prospect, but to outweigh the cost of generations of your family home versus spending an average of $1,000 on a flood policy. So in New Jersey, and it varies, but if you're just going to peg an average, it runs you just about $1,000 for a policy.
Now, is there a trend in prices of flood insurance going up with a recent array of storms, going down, or is it kind of a case-by-case basis?
We will see price fluctuations as more carriers are allowed to write it and better assess the risk. So the problem with right now the flood insurance policies is they've been suppressed all this time to make them affordable. So basically the government hasn't been collecting enough premium to afford to pay out the risk in the future. And so that's why the NFIP has gone to such a debt. When you have more granular predictive modeling, which we do, you have a lot of more ability just through IT, right? You have a better idea to predict risk. And so the more you let the private sector into that market, the more resources you have to predict and assess risk. And that allows carriers to write coverage. It may be tailored, but that coverage is now available where you might not otherwise get it.
Gotcha.
Okay. So some people will see premiums rise, some will see it. I'm not going to say premiums are going to stay the same. And in all fairness to the federal government, everybody's sharing this risk at some point. It's
and
about
there
how
is
do
so
you.
little stays the same these days. I mean, anything price-wise, so
Yeah,
little stays the
I'm
same.
not here to
including
tell you.
insurance,
I'm not a big advocate of raising
Right.
premiums, but when it comes to flood, we've cornered ourselves into always trying to make it available, and yet only making it available to these people within these maps. Now you take down those barriers, it will also spread out the risk.
Now, one thing that does help lower premiums is something called the community rating system, which I know we talk about on many episodes of Tidal Flooding Talk. Not all communities, have to participate in it, but there is a huge benefit to communities that do and do well in it. So you want to give a little background on what the CRS community
Right,
rating
so I
system
think
is?
it was back in 1990 the NFIP instituted the community rating system, and it allows your town, your community, to adhere to, I think it's 19 criteria factors. And if your town or community gets the certification through the CRS, you then, within that community, are allowed to get lower premiums when you purchase flood through the NFIP, flood insurance through the NFIP. So I think in New Jersey now, of all the towns that are in a floodplain, just over 50% of them participate in this NFIP CSR community rating system program. Find out if your community participates. If they do not, call your local officials, find out what they can be doing it has to do with public information, understanding mitigation risks, what to do with local floodplains, your wetlands,
Now,
all that
is it
stuff.
a big cost on the community to get them to join? Would it be a financial reason that they don't, or would it be just a time and effort reason that they don't?
There are resources necessary if you wanted to meet all of the criteria. So there's stages 1 through 10. If your town is even able to get themselves into the rating tier of 7 or 6, you'll start seeing 5, 10, 15% premium decreases. So I think from a public policy perspective, your elected officials have a lot of responsibility in governance of your quality of life, right? Well, I think helping you lower your insurance premium for flood, if you live in a community prone to flood, or even if you don't think you do, at some point you might. To me, that's a great benefit from elected policy position.
Right, and the lower the numbers,
that.
the better. And I know along the shore, some towns are down in the 5s and the 4s, and I think one, Seattle City, I think is a 3,
is the only
which is
one.
what, 35%? I mean,
Yeah.
and that's your town or your city working for you, and everyone in that town benefits with a 35% reduction, right?
And so, regardless of whether or not your town participates, but I highly recommend everybody get involved with your local officials to find if they do. You can take steps to mitigate your own risk, right? So if you're living at the shore, you're already aware about the benefit to raising the house, right? Putting it on some type of pillar. You can do simple things in the middle of the state of New Jersey and make sure your downspouts are turned away from the base of your property. Make sure that there is a buffer between the mulch and your home. Make sure you waterproof your basement. Get your dehumidifiers in working order. Make sure your gutters are clean. There's all these different things you can be doing to mitigate flood risk in your home.
Right, and that should be a year-round.
All year.
A year-round project, because in New Jersey, I mean, we've been focused on hurricanes and nor'easters, but you mentioned it earlier. I mean, you have river flooding and stream flooding and poor drainage flooding. Mm-hmm. I mean, New Jersey's a low-lying state, and flooding is a way of life here year-round. I mean, whether you get a storm once every 100 years or once every 2 years, I mean, the risk is always there throughout the 4 seasons.
Right, so if people recall back to Sandy, one of the programs that Governor Christie at the time had utilized and promoted and encouraged was the Blue Acres program. So under the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, we have the umbrella Green Acres program, land preservation basically. But Blue Acres is a program specifically where you volunteer to sell your property so that it can no longer be built on, and then you can put in other mitigation factors because you're doing it not because you just don't like your house, you're doing it because it's been prone to flood. So the Blue Acres program, I think Sayreville was one of the larger communities where a number of homeowners who had just seen too much flooding. Blue Acres is only for those communities that buffer the Delaware, Raritan, and Passaic rivers. And so there's government opportunities for you to take advantage of if you're tired of trying to do all you can and yet you still suffer the loss of flood.
So where does your industry go from here? We seem to be getting storms, more often, more claims, or at least the potential for claims, whether it be in New Jersey or throughout the United States. A lot of wild weather recently. What are some, innovations in your field, or where do you see your field going in the next 5 to 10 years, let's say?
So it's interesting from an industry point of view is a number of companies are actually establishing internally their own flood offices, right? I mean, so you've got underwriters and claims experience, etc. But because private insurance companies outside of surplus line carriers, right, that really write the high extreme risk, that's what they do. They reinsure even insurance companies. They are now using more IT tools and, again, the predictive modeling, getting very granular. So now you have some of the larger insurers throughout the country taking the time to put their own resources into providing coverage, and how are they best going to predict that risk so they can sell policies. And so that's the best thing for the consumer. The more that your insurer takes advantage of IT advances in that, how you can better hone in and look at risk and how those rating factors play off of each other, it's not going to be anymore about your house sits in a floodplain. It's going to be about how other factors come into what are the materials your house is made of, what is it equipped with internally, what kind of detectors does it have, alarm systems, etc. Those things will all play into the advancement of insurance companies being able to offer more diverse policies and coverage to consumers.
Right, so technology helping so
Huge.
many fields, including the insurance industry as well.
The insurance industry is probably one of the leading industries in its development and use of advanced technology.
And what do you say to someone, that still today live in a floodplain, don't have flood insurance? What's their, what's your message to them?
Please buy flood insurance. That is my message to them. And my message to them is also make sure you know what is in your homeowner's policy and understand the risk. Look, to me, insurance is like legalized gambling, right? You buy it because you are betting that there will be some occurrence in your life and then you're going to have coverage for it. If you want to gamble away all of your assets, then I think that's a risk. But to me, that's what people should take away from insurance. You are protecting your largest assets. You are doing everything you can to protect your loved ones in your family by buying health insurance if possible, getting them to good schools, getting them their checkups, whatever it is. You should be looking at your home and your car the same way. You're protecting your largest assets.
And is the process, after Sandy or after a major storm, with so much flooding, I mean, are you guys flooded with claims? Like, how do you handle the immense amount of claims after a major event? I mean, are there have the recent events? I know from a meteorological standpoint, every major event teaches us something about forecasting. From a insurance standpoint, do you guys learn from major events?
Right. So one of the things that the carriers have learned is how do you respond quickly and in a community on the ground. So nobody was prepared for New Jersey to suffer a hurricane, superstorm Sandy occurrence, right, at that scale. You now have catastrophe mobiles, or as we call them, cat mobiles or cat vans. Insurance companies, literally, they're these cool retrofitted RVs that drive on site. They do immediate claims processing. You can get checks in advance to offset your potential future claim. Adjusters are deployed. They're everything from warming stations, drying stations. Your insurance carrier should be on site of a catastrophe more frequently now than, down in the panhandle. this might be a common occurrence, but in the Northeast, it's not. Now it's becoming the norm. So insurance companies are doing what they can to make sure they are one of the first people on site to assist families to get back on their feet as quickly as possible. Emergency rental assistance, whatever it takes, because people typically don't flee with their, lockbox and their policies in their and even like if your company offers claims processing or taking photos of damage and you can upload it to your insurance company's app on your phone, use that technology. It will also expedite the assessment and then the pay of your claim.
And we were talking off camera too, and I think this is an important point and a misunderstood term. Some people say Sandy was kind of a one-of-a-kind storm, a 100-year storm, or a 200-year storm. And that doesn't mean that, all right, you get hit by Sandy, you're not going to get hit for another 100 years. So that's a commonly misunderstood term to try to convey how rare it is, but people shouldn't focus. You get hit by one storm, it doesn't mean you're off the hook, because you could very well get hit again a year later.
It doesn't mean you're off the hook, and I think, just we're lucky that one year is a high hurricane season, another it's not. So from an insurance perspective, it's not about if, it's when. And so I can't encourage people enough to just stay informed. There's so many resources on the internet now to help guide you. Talk to an agent. They are usually your line of first defense. They're also your portal to all information about buying insurance. So you can go to one where they hang a company shingle over the door, or you can go to an independent agent that offers you multiple companies to choose from to buy your coverage. Both have their benefits, but regardless, they are sort of your neighbor and your local access to learn more about insurance.
If you wanted to share, if anyone had a question for you or wanted to know more about what you guys do, Insurance Council of New Jersey, how can they reach out to you guys?
You can go on to our website, which is icnj.org, right? We're on Twitter, same thing. Facebook, the Insurance Council of New Jersey. I highly encourage you to go on it. Our website has a lot of different links to pieces of information. The other thing we do is you can call your local legislator in New Jersey, because every year around the time of the Sandy anniversary, we send out a disaster preparedness information kit to all the legislators, all 120 of them in New Jersey. And it has all the links so that your local elected legislator also has resources available to them for you as their constituent.
Now, you've been with the Insurance Council for 6 years here. Just a last personal question. What's your best part of the job? What's your favorite part of the job that you do?
I think the best part of the job is the variety. So the variety that comes with, one, lobbying the legislature on behalf of the carriers, because that's always interesting. But I think the one thing that people don't understand is the variety, literally, of insurance. Because we could talk all day just about home.
Right.
I could talk all day to you tomorrow about auto. And the evolution of autonomous vehicles, for example, and that could take another week to talk about.
Right.
And so it's fascinating. And what happens when you're injured on the job? And then we talk about workers' compensation and what happens there. And what about business interruption insurance? Which, by the way, for all the business owners out there, that was one of the major lessons learned. You have to have business interruption coverage. It will help you to get back on your feet after a major event like Hurricane Sandy.
It's probably something that people don't think about, right? I mean, because it's not common, or is it becoming more common now?
It is growing.
It is growing.
But
okay.
A lot of businesses need to be told to buy it.
Okay. So. Is there anything else, Christine, you want to add that we did not discuss? I mean, you covered such a wide range of topics over the last 30 minutes. Christine O'Brien's the president of the Insurance Council of New Jersey. We are in Trenton, and the Tidal Flooding Talk special edition on this Friday noontime hour brought to you by the New Jersey Coastal Coalition, who we are, as on behalf of the coalition, really great that we have teamed up with you guys.
Yeah, I think it's a great partnership, and I just want everyone to remember that your insurance company, you never really need them till you have a claim, right? So you can always reach out to the Department of Banking and Insurance, and you can go on their website to find out who sells insurance if you want to shop around. And I would say that's how I'd want to end it. The message I always think that consumers should take away from any information piece like this is shop. You can shop for auto, you can shop for home. The best thing about the New Jersey insurance market is that there is a lot of availability of affordable coverage in New Jersey. It's a good marketplace. It is very pro-consumer. So
that market,
take advantage of it.
It's changed so much over the past 10 years. It's become so much more pro-consumer, right?
Totally. Yeah. And the best thing about it is you can shop.
Yeah.
And if you can't, that's not pro-consumer.
Who doesn't like to shop, right?
Right.
So thank you so much, guys, for joining us. We will have our normal edition of Tidal Flooding Talk. You're, of course, welcome to come down to the Irish Pub. Great food and drink in Atlantic City. We'll be down there on Sunday. No tidal flooding expected or anything like that. Hopefully it's storm-free. Again, we're getting ready for the start of hurricane season, June 1st to November 30th. We are in Trenton, and we thank the Insurance Council of New Jersey for hosting us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Really appreciate you being here, and thanks for tuning in, guys. Enjoy a warm weekend weather-wise. Not going to be entirely sunny, but it is going to be pretty nice temperature-wise. We'll see you back Sunday night, 7 p.m. from Atlantic City.
Thank you.